Hey, what's going on, YouTube? Happy Monday. Hope everybody's had a good weekend. We just came off of our 24-hour stream from raising money with Game to Give, so that was pretty dope. I got a video of me doing one of the food challenges for the um, milestone incentive, which I think is pretty dope. So if you want to check that out, you can go over there. I have a link to the card for the video up at the top. But today's video is going to be me reviewing a couple of different weapons that I own in Destiny 2. So I usually get asked a lot of questions during my stream, which is I stream Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays on twitch.tv/silenceswaffles. So you can come check me out over there. But usually I get asked about different weapons all the time, all across the board. Like, what's my favorite weapon? What weapons do I think are the best, and all that kind of stuff. And I typically give the same answer, and I usually don't have a full breakdown of why. But I usually give the same answer of, I like to use every single gun in the game. And I figured I'd start giving my reasons as to why I like these guns. So today I'm going to start off with the Stars and Shadow, as you can see on the screen here. I finally got my two god rolls. I know everybody thinks that there's specific god rolls that across the board everybody should have, but I'm a firm believer in, everybody is different, and what's a god roll to you might be a piece of trash to me. So and vice versa. So I'm gonna go over two of the rolls that I have today that I consider god rolls that I love, and then I'm also gonna go over some potentially good perks and things that you should be looking out for on this weapon. Okay, so before we get in, I'm going to tell you the two things that I use to kind of like go over weapons and view them. One being my normal item manager, which I know a lot of people use dim. I also use that as well for when I'm doing loadout optimizations, but I use Ishtar Commander because it's an app for my phone as well as my desktop instead of being in the web browser. You can get it in the Windows Store and in the App Store on iOS and Android. I also use d2gunsmith.com to view the full perk package that you can have on a gun, as well as the stats and everything like that. So I highly recommend you use both those sites. Use that website as well as that app if you want to use things that are standalone instead of having a web browser and all that kind of stuff open. All right, so let's hop right to it. Okay, first, let's start off by introducing the weapon. Again, it's the Stars and Shadow Pulse Rifle. It's an energy pulse rifle, a solar energy pulse rifle. It's a 340 archetype. Typical magazine is around 28, and the recoil direction is around 64. Now, those are the basic numbers that you typically will always see on these guns. All right, it's a high impact pulse rifle. All right, which means it's slow firing, but it does very high damage. So it has a very, very good rate of fire, as well as it has a really good damage fall off and just impact damage in general. It slowly came into play for me as one of the best pulse rifles so far that I've come across in the energy slot. That is solar. That being said, right there, right? So we don't have too many different archetypes or element types of pulse rifles in the energy slot, which is a shame, and I'm kind of hoping that they do more. But this is our solar variant. I know we do have a void as well as a arc pulse rifle that I am going to speak on in two other videos, so look out for those. One being the Infinite Path 8 and the other being the Last Perdition, something that we were used to seeing, but we'll talk about that later. Okay. Now, conventionally, you will usually hear people say, oh, well, go for a reload perk and go for a damage perk, and then go for the maximum range you can possibly get without talking about any of the other stats that could potentially help benefit you. Now, you're your own person. I need you to go in and try out different guns. If you get multiple rolls of this gun, don't just immediately throw them away because it doesn't have specific perks on them. I want you to try them out, see how they feel, because it's not necessarily the perks themselves that you're looking at, but more so the stats that the gun is coming with. Now, there are a few perks that affect these stats, okay? So keep that in mind. With that in mind, all right, note that whatever your stats are on this gun, it could potentially be the reason as to why you like it so much. Because if you get another roll of that same gun and those stats are off just by 2 or 3 numbers, you might not like that gun. So I like to look for stability and handling on my guns, typically because it just feels a lot smoother. Kind of like having that one perk Zen moment where it makes your recoil non-existent essentially. in instances of guns that I like to use, I typically will go for high handling, high stability rolls. Now, that being said, I know a lot of guns don't have these intrinsic stats on them, but you can all like it's still something you want to look into. All right, and I'm not a huge expert on any of this. I'm just going off of what feels right to me when I play it with a keyboard and mouse. Okay, now I'm gonna go down each perk pool or perk lane, whatever you want to call it, and go over why I particularly like these perks on my gun and why they feel so comfortable to me. Okay, so starting off in the first perk with the barrel. Okay, typically I like to go for arrowhead break, corkscrew rifling, chambered compensator, hammer forge rifling, and you can see a couple of these for obvious reasons. Okay, for the most part, anything that will increase stability and increase handling, I like it. Anything that will increase reload, I like that as well. Anything that will decrease my stability or handling, I tend to stay away from, but I'm okay with if I get those rolls. Looking at the base stats on the gun, I would like the roll to keep the stability around a 45 to 50 area, and the handling to be between 32 and 40. All right, or 35 and 40. Let's give it that one. 35 and 40s, anywhere in that range. I've seen it get as high as 40, but anywhere in that range for handling, I like to keep it. As far as the other stats on it, could care less. Now the range, of course, yes, it does make a difference. All right, but depending on the engagement that I'm in, really doesn't matter to me. Outside of with where the masterwork falls. If the masterwork falls on a range, then the range doesn't bother me too much. But if the masterwork falls on like stability or handling, then I tend to look at a higher range stat. All right, now going into column 2, the perks that I'm looking at here are going to be accurized rounds, tactical mag, steady rounds, and flared magwell. Okay, all of these increasing either reload or stability. Again, I'm falling back onto that stability feel because I want the gun to feel like there's no recoil kick whatsoever. And typically the 340s don't tend to have them, depending on the gun. Okay, depending on the gun. Hard base stats. That's pretty much it, the reasoning behind that. Okay, next, the third lane for Perk Pool. All right, now in this lane, I know that we got a few new perks and a couple of returning ones. All right, now obviously I'm going to recommend reload perks, of course, for those who can get the kills constantly and want to keep reloading the clip nonstop, depending on what other perk they have in there. Reload perks are good. But I like to stray towards other things that can help benefit me too. All right. So for me, Feeding Frenzy, Outlaw, of course, as well as Pulse Monitor. Now, if I'm going in, depending on if I'm playing PvE versus PvP, that's kind of where I split these last two perk pools, right? So if I'm doing PvP, perks like Pulse Monitor, I absolutely love and adore. All right. You can't beat it. You get a little increase to it automatically reloads the weapon, and you get a little increase to handling when you critically wounded. It's great. You can't knock it. All right, honestly. Grave Robber can tend to be good if you're one of those up close and personal people that like to run around like a heathen in the game. That tends to be a really good perk as well when you need to reload the gun. All right. Feeding Frenzy for obvious reasons, and Outlaw for obvious reasons. Killing Wind. All right, when final blows grant increased stability, weapon range, handling for a short duration. This is an amazing perk as well. It's one of my second favorite perks that came in last season. All right, now as far as like perks like Surplus or Quick Draw, love Quick Draw because again it's when you're swapping back and forth between weapons, that can help you out as well. Those are really good perks on it as well. And also don't slip out on Underdog either. That boosts your reload as well. So again, if you're getting when your health is low, so again if you get into those firefights and you get in a kill after a long period of time in that fight, Underdog definitely helps you out with the reload. Getting ready, get you ready for your next engagement. All right. And as far as that perk pool, there's nothing else really in that part of the list that I tend to stray towards. So that's going to be that. Moving on to the final perk lane. Okay. So For the final lane, all right, again, depending on if it's for PvP or PvE, there's a ton of perks in this lane that are amazing, all right? And there's a couple of new ones that I think you should definitely, that I highly recommend that you check out, all right? Now, starting off with PvP, all right? I'm not a big PvP player, but again, there are particular roles for guns that I tend to stray towards, all right? And I typically like to look for at least 1 to 2 different roles to try out the weapon and see how it feels under different circumstances, right? So obviously we got snapshot in this lane, something that I like to use again, because if you're constantly ADSing or slide ADSing, that tends to help you out, you know, get your little accuracy going on there. Then we also have moving target, as well as the elemental capacitor. All 3 of those very good for PvP. Head seeker is kind of like a little bit of a depending on like if you're working on your aim, is kind of in there, but I try to stray away from it. All right, moving over to PvE, there are a few different roles that I like to use for this. All right, now I'm gonna highlight the one of the new perks, which is Thresh here. Killing combatants with this weapon generates a small amount of super energy. Amazing for PvE, okay? It's basically makes this gun like a baby version of bad juju. All right, you're walking around with this and a reload perk, you get to go, okay? Whether it be outlaw or feeding frenzy, preferably feeding frenzy, and I'll talk about that because I have that role myself, okay? Moving on next, my favorite perk of all time, Dragonfly. Can't go anywhere without it, can't live without it. It's just too great. I know the explosion is not as great as it was in D1, but put a Dragonfly perk on with that, you get to go. All right. Next, we have Vorpal. God tier perk. I'm sorry. God tier perk. Okay. Absolutely love this thing. I started to favor this when they first dropped Vorpal back, I think like 2 or 3 seasons ago. Actually back when in Season of the Dawn, right? It came out in Season of the Dawn, if I'm not mistaken. And I fell in love with this perk. And I couldn't help but get every single gun I possibly could. If it had this perk on it, I got it. That was it. I had to have at least 1 role designated for this with champions. This is absolutely amazing during those nightfalls, whether it be legend, master, or grandmasters. This will definitely help you out in the long run. Okay. Next, I'm going to recommend obviously Kill Clip. That's a kill perk. And then I'm also going to recommend a Destruction Break as well. A lot of people sleep on this. Very, very useful in those situations of, hey, maybe I'm just, you know, fully support. I'm not too good with, you know, getting specific kind of kills or anything like that. But I also want to break this monster's shield. Boom. We use this perk and we get at it. All right. And it helps out the entire team at the same time. So works out. All right, and now just a couple of roles that I wanted to highlight for you guys that I currently have on my account. I'm using Ishtar Commander to view and show you guys the weapons with the perks and the stats together on the screen. So here we go. First one I'm gonna show off, which is my favorite, my baby. I just got this yesterday. Is my newly acquired Dragonfly Feeding Frenzy role. It has an impact obviously of 33, range of 70. Without any masterwork. The stability is 61, again, without any masterwork. So this is at a 1. The handling is at a 35. Remember I told you that range that I like to keep it at between 35 and 40. Handling's at 35. And again, the 61 is the stability is at a 61. And obviously the reload is at a 54. Aim assist 28. Same other default stats for everything else. I currently have a Dragonfly spec mod on here to amplify the Dragonfly on here. And then for the magazine perks, I have a tactical mag and a flared magwell, but I'm running flared magwell. But you can run tactical mag, you get a little bit out of it, a little bit more out of it, and an increased magazine size as well. But I've opted in to go for the flared magwell for a little bit. But I'm going to try out both, of course. Then for the barrels, we have polygonal rifling, which I'm not really going to use because it's just only stability. But we also have corkscrew rifling, which is an increase to range, stability, and handling. So all 3 in that one combo. Okay. Next is the Feeding Frenzy Disruption Break. I was telling you about this one before. All right. This one comes with Chamber Compensator, extended mag, Feeding Frenzy, and Disruption Break. Okay. Now, as far as the other barrel, Fluted Barrel, that's another great barrel that I would also recommend as well. Okay, the stats on this one not as great as the other one, which kind of has me a little sad. The range is 66, the stability is a 58, still good there, but the handling is below what I usually would recommend for handling. Same with the reload, is far below anything that I would usually recommend. But I'm still gonna give this a try and see how it feels for PvP. I mean for PvE. Typically in PvE with those kind of stats, it doesn't really bother me. Now it's when you start to trespass over into PvP is where we go into like, hey, I wish those stats were a little bit better. Here's my next role, which is a Thresh and Feeding Frenzy with accurized rounds and Hammer Forge, as well as with the full bore barrel. One of the barrels I don't necessarily recommend because of the decreased instability. And then we have a range of 84, a stability of 49, still in a good place, with the handling of a 31. Now, it's just 4 points below 35, but it's still in a good place there for that as well. And the reload speed is a 42. Okay. Next role I want to point out for you guys is going to be my one that I didn't mention. And this was one of the perks that I kind of like skipped over. And I'm sorry I did that. Eye of the Storm is actually another great perk for PvP. Now this is a PvP role right here specifically. So this is one of those perks that I definitely do recommend for PvP as well. Unfortunately, the handling on this one is a bit low for my liking, but I'm still willing to give it a try and try to get used to it and see if I can enjoy it a little bit. If I can find a better one, I am going to replace it as soon as possible. But I have extended barrel on this, which sadly decreases the handling speed even more, which I try to avoid just a little bit. But both my barrels on this are kind of bad. I have an extended barrel and a full bore. I don't necessarily like these again because they decrease my handling. But it comes with a tactical mag and accurized rounds for the increased range, which is why the range is at 84. But again, that handling is kind of gone, and it kind of feels a little bit sluggish when you're running, and then you're switching to ADS or pulling the weapon out and all that kind of stuff. So that's going to be it. Let me know if this was very helpful to you. Whether or not you guys are going to try to go for this pulse rifle, or whether or not you like it. Tell me what your favorite roles are. What do you guys think about the gun itself? Also, tell me what your favorite shaders are. Mine is Bumblebee. I want to see your guns with the shader on it. If you can, drop some links of images down below. I know it's a little dangerous, but let's see. All right. If this video was helpful in any way, shape, or form, click that like button, maybe even share. And also don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying any of the content here. I'm going to try to do a few more videos like this as well. Kind of stepping into a new box, if you will. But I do appreciate you checking it out if you made it this far into the video. And I will see you guys in the next one. Stay tuned.